All right, welcome friends. We are here to talk about Hashicorp Vault, Terraform, and CICD for the fintech industry, but that's not all we're talking about today. And I hope this thing works. My name is Rin Oliver. I use they, he pronouns. I am a software engineer and an agile transformation coach at US Bank. I'm an advisory board member. I contribute to open source. I'm a mentor, accessibility advocate. I love open source, DevSecOps, inner source, all those fun things. If you want to hear my focus areas: improving hiring pipelines in the tech industry for people that are neurodivergent, removing accessibility barriers to learning programming. Because I come from a non-traditional tech background, I'm sitting in front of you with a communications degree. My degree was in public relations, and I thought I was going to go into politics. So neither of these things happened. I also have dyscalculia, which meant that working for a bank was not something that I ever thought was in my cards. But here we are. I have to say that US Bank, the company, does not endorse any third-party products. We engage with a lot of third parties and products, and doesn't allow endorsements of third parties. The use of any specific tool or advice or anything in this workshop doesn't indicate that US Bank, the company, is endorsing, nor is it receiving any financial benefits from said third party. So that's fun. Brief agenda. So here's what we're at. First things first, we're going to go over a brief intro to CICD, the benefits of infrastructure as code. What is that? Who knows? We're going to find out. Then we're going to get started on some best practices for working with Terraform, what you'll want to know about working with Vault. Then we're going to get started, get some hands-on stuff, and follow through an actual, this is where it gets fun, the actual Terraform and the Vault docs. Because if you can't follow those, you're going to be in some trouble. So we're going to see, did they write good docs? Let's find out. And then we're going to hopefully get Vault to retrieve a secret and run it through that GitHub CICD pipeline on GitHub Actions. Going to take a little turn there, though, and then we're going to get to know Probot. If you don't know what Probot is, that's okay. It's an application that really, for lack of a better word, supercharges GitHub, because there's so many cool things. If you're a member of Kubernetes, or if you've seen any sort of issue bots where issues get automatically labeled or they get automatically commented, those are probably Probot. So we're going to talk about that, how you can use it, what it does, etc. Then we're going to take another curve, and we're going to talk about how you can leverage open source software to improve your documentation. What is accessible documentation, why you need it, how you can write it, etc. Then we're going to go for a little brainstorming session. What does documentation mean to you? What makes good documentation? What's bad documentation? How do you find that out? So we're going to come together as a group, talk that over. And then we're going to take a brief little segue into automation, accessibility, innovation, and then wrap it up, a couple takeaways. So going a little bit of here, there, and everywhere, but that's all right. It'll be fun. I want to thank you all for being here with me today. Really appreciate it. So, CICD, it matters, it's important. Tooling is variable. You can have any kind of tooling. That's really, the sky's the limit here. Best practices, on the other hand, those are pretty fixed. You've got your do's, you've got your don'ts, things that you're going to want to say, okay, you can use whatever tool you want. We're tool agnostic here. But if you're going to pick your tools, you got to do these 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Not negotiable. If you don't have that solid CI/CD pipeline, you're going to face a really, really long struggle. And embracing CI/CD and infrastructure as code, you're going to really open up a wide world of things that you can do with OSS and cloud computing as a whole. So it's very, very helpful. And I know that it can be a real challenge to get that CI/CD up and running in terms of working in fintech, because there's always, why should you do that? Why should we move to Agile? What is this? Why do I need this? But when they see it in action, it's a whole new ballgame. So, challenges. We know those. Who are you getting buy-in from? Is it the right person? I've faced that, where you go, okay, who do I need to talk to? And then it turns out it's not them. It's their other person in some other department that you've never talked to, and then you're like, who are you? And that's the person that you need the yes from, not the person that somebody else said you did. So it's always, you've got to find those right people, and you've got to make sure that you get the buy-in. And you also need to define what that buy-in looks like. If it's a document, if it's a meeting, if it's something, make sure that it is clearly documented every time. I spoke to this person on this day. They are highly in favor of this. We will move it forward in the process. This is the deadline for us to do that. But the timeline has to be realistic. You can't be like, we're going to get all of our new developers onboarded onto GitHub, and everybody's going to learn how to label issues and use Git and CI/CD in the next 3 months. It'll be fun. it's not going to work. It's going to be, yeah, it'll be fun. Super great. Never mind that all of our repos are private and nobody knows what anybody else is doing, but that's fine. It'll be good. Totally awesome. Costs. Who's managing this stuff? What about audits? How big of a cluster do you need? What if it goes down? Do we need HA? What is HA? What does that even mean? So you're going to have to figure out all of those things. Do you want to manage your Terraform? Do you want to manage your Vault? Or do you want Terraform or Vault to do it? Do you want your provider to do that? Do you want to say, you have fun with that, and just get to use the tooling? So somebody has to figure that out. And then you're going to want to talk audits, legal. Check your cluster sizes. Are they charging you for licenses? How many seats do you need on GitHub? Because if you have an organization on GitHub and you have an enterprise account, they're charging you money. Fair bit of it. And you've got to also track your actions minutes, because those are free for open source projects. They are not free in other cases. So you got to make sure that you're really aware of your costs. And we've all seen the AWS. Turn off your AWS, because otherwise it will be a suffering time. And the other thing is, too, convincing cross-functional team members that open source software is secure. You go to the security people and they're like, nah. They just look at you with this, no, not that. Because when they think open source, they think just alarm bells. There's terror, abject fear. Because up until probably a little bit ago, when the actual government, like federal government, started noticing open source over on the Cloud Native Computing Foundation side, they're really moving that forward at a policy level that's amazing, shout out. But up until then, it was hard to get buy-in from security. So you're going to want to really get in there and say, what are your concerns? How can I address those? What is causing this fear? And come at it from a place of empathy and understanding, because there has to be that psychological safety there so they can open up to you. And if you don't establish psychological safety with that team, they're just going to come in and feel like you're forcing them to change, or forcing them to do something that goes against, security policy, and they're not going to do that either. They'll be like, no. And also, license reviews, legal reviews, policy reviews, all of that takes a lot of time. So if you don't factor that in, it's not going to be great. So ideally, you're going to want to really consider, how long is it going to take us to review this license? What does it mean? Who has to review it? When do they sign off on it? How long is that going to take? Does legal have to look this over? Do they have to sign it? Do they have to send it way up the chain? Or can it just be our team, et cetera? And policy depends. Is it just an inner source tool? Is it open source policy? Is it going to have to go to your OSPO office? Better yet, do you have an OSPO office? If you don't have one, should you? And that's where that gets. And then there's also compatibility issues. What if it doesn't work? What if you're on bare metal? What if you're on a mainframe that's running COBOL? Then what? What are you doing? And so you've got to figure out, is your proposed solution compatible with your legacy code? Is it compatible with those applications? What kind of struggle are you facing there? And then it's like, who's hosting this bad boy? Is it going to be me? Is it going to be you? So you're going to have to sit down and say, all right, where are we hosting this? And how much does it cost? And how often do we want to have it available for? Is there an SLA? Do we need to write one? Whose responsibility is that? How do you document an SLA? How do you price that out and say, here's what we're guaranteeing people in terms of how much time this will take to be up? So those are just some of the challenges we can face here. And if you're not running Screaming Yat, you're in a good place. So infrastructure as code. What is it? Basically, at its core, there's Terraform, there's Pulumi, Puppet, Azure, Ansible, Kubernetes, Packer. It's a huge ecosystem. We're going to be here all day. But you know the drill. There's a lot of them. IAC, or infrastructure as code, at the meat and bones of it, it basically enables developers to manage everything in that app's infrastructure. It's orchestration management, state management, configuration, provisioning, managing those cloud resources, and so much more. So it's a little bit of everything. And having that IAC basis is huge, because that means that you can do so much with your apps and so much with your infrastructure in general that it used to be so much time for so many different people that you've now consolidated into one little piece. So in the first half of this workshop, we're going to be working with Terraform and Vault, mainly Vault, and we're going to try to set up GitHub Actions on a pipeline and see if we can get it to retrieve a secret for us. Fingers crossed, because we're on hotel internet, who knows? There's a lot of other choices out there, though. whatever management solution you choose, it should ideally be tailored to your use case. And in theory, you should evaluate a few potential solutions. You can choose one to work with long term. There's so many out there that doing that due diligence and making sure that you figure out all your options is great. Vault is just the one I chose today because it's just one that I'm familiar with in general. It's a great little tool, and I think it's really fun. So that being said, there are some things that you can have that are mistakes in terms of Terraform. You can use non-modular modules. You can skip the basics, Terraform environments or Terraform formatting, and that's not great because if you don't apply those basic environments and the formatting of Terraform, it's going to freak out at you. So another thing is some people, I hate to say it, they store secrets in plain text. They're just out there in the world, hanging out for anybody to see in their repos on GitHub. It's there, and we've all seen it. Another thing is they leave the docs until the last minute. Write the docs, please, I beg of you. Your teams will thank you. Especially what I've seen is a lot of fintech institutions, everybody's repos are private. Nobody knows what the other team's doing. It's all locked down. They automatically create a repo, it's private by default. If you want to do inner source, they're like, why though? And they've said, we don't need to write docs. Everybody on the team knows how to use this. It's just sitting in Git. It'll be fine. But then they, and then they have to put it on GitHub, and either they don't know what GitHub is in general, and they're like, what is GitLab? What is GitHub? How do I use this? I've just been working strictly with Git. I don't know. What is this fancy GitLab thing? Don't want that. But the thing is, then they're faced with the fact that there's not even a README in that repo. There's just the main core that makes it run, and that's it. So how does the person that just got this inner source repo to use this tool use it? Beats me. So if you don't write the docs, that person's going to have a really bad time, and that's not a great user experience for the people that are relying on that tool to do their job. But the good thing is, Vault can secure a heck of a lot of things. So it's got tokens, it's got passwords, your Kubernetes secrets, key value pairs, API credentials. It manages those keys as well. Encryption, we got it. Secret management, absolutely. And that's just, like I said, one of the many, many ways that you can build automated security into that CICD pipeline. Vault and GitHub Actions is super cool. And it also can automatically rotate those secrets out for you. There's a bunch of cool things that you can do. It's really awesome. So, that being said, secrets. What about those secrets? You might be saying, yeah, Vault's got a Terraform provider. I can just make these things talk to each other. It'll be great. That way Terraform can just read the secrets straight out of Vault. Awesome. Don't have to do it. That'll be fantastic. You could. You could, but do you want to? So the thing is, that if you do that, your secrets will be right out there in your Terraform variables in plain text. So highly recommend that you don't. Just, if you want to do that, Godspeed. But if you work so hard to set up those secrets, and then if you don't have that external secret injection, you don't have that configured correctly, those are going to be visible to the public right in that state file. So there's a couple of ways that you can get around that. You can use that operator-provided non-platform-based authentication using usernames and passwords. You can also do it with your Kubernetes service account, configure your access management rules, etc., and use that underlying platform identity. You can also have app role permissions enabled and use in a secure manner, also known as Secret Zero. So another way you can do it is also not great. You can bypass authentication and use a token that's provided directly to the application, also known as tokens from the sky. It's raining tokens. I wouldn't recommend that one either. I'd like to give a shout out to my friend at Hashicorp, Joe Thompson, who wrote an awesome blog about Secret Zero, which is linked in the slides that will be available for download. Please go check it out. It's super rad. What we're going to be working with today is actually configuring GitHub and configuring those secrets right in GitHub using a tool called GitHub Auth. It's just the main method for that. So that's where we're going to be working today. But app role versus GitHub authentication. Okay, there's two of these things. Authenticating through the Vault platform directly is best. You might not always be able to do that. If you're running on bare metal, or if you're running a plugin that doesn't necessarily support Vault, you might not be able to authenticate directly through Vault. So then what do? That's okay. You can have app role. That's where app role comes in. It splits those credentials into two different things, a role ID, secret ID. So that's really cool because they're delivered through different channels. At no point in time do they cross the same stream. Think of it like Ghostbusters. Do not cross the streams. Secret IDs are delivered to an application at the time of its use at startup or whenever you set that to be. So it's only delivered at that point, never at any other time, which is really nice too. Another thing is app role is really useful for servers that need to authenticate with Vault. So if you're running a server that needs to authenticate, you're going to want to look at app role first. The GitHub auth method we're using today is going to be used by developers and used by humans rather than by applications or servers. So that's what we're working with today. But you might be asking yourself, all right, this is all fun. Rin, thanks for that. But what's my use case? Why do I need infrastructure as code? So for finding that, you're going to have to ask yourself, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Is it user onboarding? Is it issue management? Is it getting people onboarded to GitLab in general? Is it workshops? Is it basically just the concept of what is a CICD pipeline and how does it work? So you're going to have to identify that problem. And then you're going to have to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, what have we tried already? Have we tried workshops? Have we tried lunch and learns? Have we tried literal courses? Have we tried Udemy? Have we tried whatever, CKAD, the Kubernetes administrative course, whatever it is? What have you tried and what has or hasn't worked? So you've got to really ask yourself those hard questions, and you might come up with some really uncomfortable answers because nobody likes to feel like they don't know enough. And it's always this imposter syndrome where it's like, what if they're going to find out I'm a fake? And addressing that isn't necessarily a failure because if you don't try anything, you're never going to get to the point where you actually succeed. So you've got to also have that psychological safety there to say, all right, this failed, but that doesn't mean it's always going to, because we can learn and we can adapt and we can be better. And that's where you define success. What does winning look like? What is it going to be that we have 3 developers building a CI/CD pipeline? Is it going to be that we're using GitLab and GitHub for issue management? Is it going to be that we're linking GitLab and Jira and we're running an automated GitHub workflow that says every time I open an issue in GitHub, it'll tick back to Jira and say, hey, this got an update, whatever that looks like. And another thing is, what are those gaps? Where are those security issues? Where's those dark corners that you don't necessarily want to look at? You got to really get in there and say, all right, what if something happens? Who do we call? What do we do? Who's that directly responsible individual that you're going to look to when something does go wrong? Because something probably will at some point. Sometimes Vault's not available. Sometimes Terraform goes down. Things break. Slack breaks. You've got to set that status page and you've got to be like, what are we going to do? And who are we, how do we, if this tool breaks and we have this CI/CD pipeline, and for example, GitHub Actions is on the fritz, how do we roll that out to tell our users, hey, GitHub Actions is on the fritz. You're going to have to wait a bit before you run these workflows. You're going to see a delay here. Who's the person responsible for doing that? So you're going to want to really get in there and talk to your team members and say, who's our chain of command here? So that's really cool. And I think that another thing that you have to ask yourself is, what are you hoping to gain from this? Like, yeah, agile transformation, great. Awesome, fun, digital transformation, whatever you want to call it, amazing. Open source, wonderful. Cloud-based, fantastic. But at the end of the day, if you don't know why you're doing it, like just to do it for the sheer sake of doing it, to say, we're cloud-based, yay. Nah, just really figure out like what you're hoping to gain from it from a standpoint of empowering your teams, empowering your users, your customers, your business prospects, everybody. Just say, what do we hope to gain from all of these points? Not just our team, but the teams that we work with, our business partners, our customers, their customers. How are people going to benefit from us doing this? Not even now, 5, 10 years down from the road. Where will this take us? Because you've got to feel that it's like, you might lose a little bit because it takes time. So you're going to lose some time there. But in the end, I'd like to think that the benefit outweighs the risk. So it's worth even looking into. I think a lot of places might be scared of change. And even if you embrace just like agile coaching even, like we do on my team, for example, we've got teams that come in 400 or 500 people. They don't know what GitLab is. They don't know what GitHub is. They're using mainframes that are older than I am, and I'm 37. So they're still talking COBOL, and that's okay, because that's what they know and that's what they're familiar with, and that's all right, because you've got to meet them where they're at. I don't want to drag them into this center. That's not going to help. They're just going to resent me. They're going to be like, why are you making me do this? I don't work this way. I don't want to do that. And that's not psychologically safe, and it's not empathetic, because they're not. I'm over here doesn't mean that they are. Just because I know what Kubernetes is and I'm in open source and I came from a startup doesn't mean they did. They might have spent 40 years in the bank industry. I've been working for a bank for 5 months. So we're coming from completely different worlds. So you've got to have some real empathy there. And I think that in general, that's where you convince the stakeholders, because you have to have that empathy and that understanding, because that approach will be effective and it will show those gains and those incremental successes over time. But you've also got to allow people to grow, and you've got to have that time there so that they can make sure that they're actually allowed to do that. Oh boy, yeah, it's fun time. So now we're gonna actually get to use the GitHub Actions part. So you can clone the repository there, but there's not a whole lot there right now. And the reason that is because I want to do this a little differently. I didn't necessarily want to see y'all just sit here and watch me code. I thought this was going to be a pretty small crowd, and I was right. But that's a good thing, because if you'd like, you can open your browser and get on the hotel Wi-Fi, and you can Google the exercise we're going to be doing today, which is based off of the Hashicorp Vault GitHub Actions tutorial. And we're going to follow along and see if they wrote good docs and if we can actually get it to do what they said it can. So we'll see. Can we do it? Let's find out. So we're going to take some time here, and I'm going to actually get out of this, if I can, and go over here to this one. So here we are. These are the Hashicorp Vault docs. And if you're a developer, this is probably going to be your first protocol when somebody says, what is this Vault thing? Yeah, nobody has to follow along if you don't want to. That's okay. I'm not offended. It's all right. You don't have to download anything, because I'm actually already halfway there for you. So the thing is, you'll see that it requires all of these wonderful things: Vault, Git, Docker, GitHub account. I already have those. You might not. So that's okay. So it says, it assumes right off the bat that you know what these things are. And for a lot of people, that's going to be a problem. Because what if, again, they don't know what GitHub is. They've never used it. So you're going to want to say, okay, you're going to want to go through and read these and say, what are those prerequisites? What do I need first? So I've got Vault, I've got Git, I've got Docker, and a GitHub account. So we're good. So I've already actually cloned that repo that they have there. And I already have the GitHub action cloned. You will notice, I'd like to point this out, this lovely little alert that says a working directory. This tutorial assumes the remainder of the commands are executed within this directory. And why I'm calling attention to this is because that is a very good example of good documentation, because a lot of people might not know what a working directory is. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've heard working directory and not known that it's just the top of the folder in VS Code. It's just the main one. That's it. And that's where you're hanging out. And it doesn't necessarily, a lot of people default to assuming that you're at a point of knowledge that you might not be at. So this is a really good thing to do, is what you think might be common knowledge, call it out and say, this is what this means, very clearly, so that people that might be coming from a non-traditional background or that have never used that know that this is the main folder in this repository. So I've already got this going, which is good. So this is my hideous VS Code. I apologize in advance. And you'll notice that it's mad at me because I have markdown linting on, so we're just going to ignore that for now. It's a little angry, but that's okay. So what it wants us to do is build that Docker image that is actually right in here. So they've got this lovely Docker file where what they've done here is that you'll see unset secret, please override. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to override that. So, but first things first, we're going to try to build that image. Can we do that? I do not know, but we are going to find out. So let's see. So that home directory, like I said, is this very top one. It's not any of these. It's this little guy here. Hopefully we can build this and it won't get mad at me. Delight. Wow. First ever workshop actually works. It's a good day. Yeah. It's all good. So it's going to do its thing, and as you'll see, it's actually going to start building that image, and hopefully it doesn't throw any strange errors at me. We'll see. But it is happy. The thing is, you'll note that you would think that working directory meant the top one. It doesn't. It means the actual, this one right here. It means the Vault GitHub Action Directory. That is your working directory. That is where you are staying for this entire thing. Because a lot of times when I was developing apps before I learned what that meant, I'd be hanging out here in this top level wondering why nothing was working. Because I was supposed to be in here. And that's not, it's not great. But, so, Docker scan, run sneak tests. Thank you, Sneak. I appreciate that. That's new. So we've got that built. Awesome. That stage works. So that's fantastic. So the thing is, they built that image. Great. We've got that step done. Good docs. Wonderful. So what they're trying to do now is that push that to my workstation's local Docker repo. So they created a default app secret. And that's stored in a file named, clearly, app secret. But we can view that in the Docker run vault that says unset secret, please override. So that's fun. And that's right there, like we said, in that Docker file. It's that right there. So that's fun. Now they want us to actually start Vault. Fingers crossed. Can we do that? In a different terminal. Start a Vault dev with the server root. Okay. So we're going to open another one. Nope. Did I install Vault on this computer, or did I install it on the work computer? Godspeed. Well, then we're installing Vault. We're going back a few steps. But that's okay, because it's a workshop, and if something did not go wrong, it would not be a workshop. But that was quick. It's joy. Okay. Well, we got Vault installed. That was quick. So hopefully we're going to be able to do the next step, which is getting that. Ooh, it's mad. All right, so let's read this. What does this say? Developer mode is enabled. That's a good call out. So what that means is it's running in memory. So it starts unsealed with that single key. So that root token's already authenticated to this CLI, so I can immediately begin using Vault. That's awesome. However, it says, I might want to set an environment variable. Okay, let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. What's that going to do for us? What that's going to do is it's going to tell the Vault address that's where that's looking. So that URL is where that address is going to be. So that unseal key is displayed below, and it tells me right there what that is, in case I want to unseal that Vault or re-authenticate. So note that other call out, don't use developer mode in production. Dear God, please no. That would be bad. So that's that next step. So awesome, shout out to Vault, we're there. Even though we had to install Vault, we're still getting there. Good. So the thing is, all right, we're getting there. And note again, the callouts, they said, do not do this. Like, no. So that environment variable is how the CLI is going to talk to that Vault server, because otherwise they can't communicate. They're just sitting there on totally opposite planets. Nobody's talking to each other. Not happening. So that's very, very good to set. So we're going to do that, actually, in this other terminal here. We're going to set that. Done. Beautiful. So now we're going to do the next step, which is getting that Vault CLI so that we have that variable. So that Vault token is root. We remember that because we just saw that. So that's fantastic. So that's our root set to get that going. Done. Beautiful. It's a good day. But we don't have a secret yet. So that's where GitHub comes in. And that's always fun. So what this means is that GitHub workflow is going to read that secret that we're defining. It's going to say it's in secret/data/CI. So that needs to be created, that policy defined, the access is that says this policy says you can access this thing at this time. And then it has to generate a token that actually retrieves that and brings it back to us. So the next thing they're going to want us to do is to create that secret path with that secret. So we're going to do that. And that says vault key value. KV stands for key value. So that's that key pair. It's a key and a value pair. It's like a lock and a key. So it's going to say, put that secret CI app secret, and it sets it to secret provided by vault. It's just a demo. So that's what we're calling that. That is the secret key for now. There's obviously not a very secret key, but you know, don't name it that. So there we go. Key value, and it tells you when it was created, tells you its metadata, deletion, was it destroyed, the version of it, etc. So we've successfully created a key. Congratulations. So far, so good, which is great. I really enjoyed that they let you know, when it was created, what the version of it is, was it ever destroyed, etc. That's really cool. Yes, we have successfully created the secret. Thank you. Awesome. But now that comes back to those policies that we were talking about, where sometimes people might not set a policy. They might not know what a policy is, or that they have to set one in the first place. So Vault policies are basically telling Vault that the path secret, you can read it. That's the only thing you can do. You cannot do anything other than read that. That is a policy that says capabilities, this is the only thing you get to do. You get to read. You don't get to write. You don't get to do anything else. Reading only is it. So that's what we're going to want to do next, is define that policy. Success. We did it. CI secret reader policy created. Wonderful. So here's the fun part. The next thing we're going to do is get that GitHub repo token to capture that token that we're creating with that policy. Because otherwise, how's GitHub going to know that it's there? So you'll notice that they say you've got that auth client token. It's in JSON format, which is all right. JSON's a good way to go for that. So they're going to set that up. There's your token. There's your accessor. There's how long that duration is. And obviously, you can change that when you're running it like on your own. And you can say, is it renewable? You can say, no. It's only a one-time thing. You don't get to renew it. You get it, and then it kills, and then you have to make a new one. So you can have your policies and say that secret reader can read that by default, or it can't. And you say, this is the default policy. So that's how that breaks down. Let's see if we can do that. If I copied the whole thing, that would be good. Technology. Fun. VS Code sometimes does not like me. And that's okay. I would actually like to copy that. Thank you. No, that is it. Okay.